Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership of the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Deep Dive Film School uses the footage only for purposes of education, commentary, and criticism under fair use. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning. Welcome to Deep Dive Film School!
This week we're doing a punishment review of 2006's remake, The Wicker Man, with our friend Jeff Anderson. Welcome.
Let's dive in. Is that it?
Yeah.
All right, everybody, I am Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Pulcher.
And this is Mr. Jeff Anderson.
You can call me Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, that's
Mr.
I mean,
yeah.
for a movie podcast.
I mean, you're asking to get your face photo show up on a Matrix, in the Matrix right now, so you know.
It's not like there's not, I don't know. This is the most common name in this state.
That is true.
Anderson, so...
Probably in the United States, too, right?
Yeah, most likely. It's not like it's an isolated joke only to me. I'm sure every goddamn person with his last name's heard it 1,000 times.
If
So
you like what
original.
you see /hear, please make sure to subscribe to us. You can find us on all of the regular hubs and platforms and whatnots.
Yes, and so we always do this 5th extension of our festival, and we just finished off our You Should See This festival, and we thought we'd flip it a little bit into a punishment review of you giving me something to see that I haven't seen that's really shitty.
Yeah, and
Jeff loves shitty movies.
And I have a bit of a confession here, which is that this day before yesterday, watching 2006's Wicker Man, marked the 7th time I've seen this movie.
Wow. Committed.
Because it's so horrible. I feel like you could do an entire dissertation like class just dissecting this movie for film students as a way to say what not to do. I think that this movie
Let me ask you, where would you start? I don't even know where to start.
Oh, man, you just... Right where the two movies cross and
Right
go completely sideways. Right?
Right when the credits start rolling.
Yeah, right at the credits. Right at the first...
Right when the papyrus font.
That's what I was going to say, is when papyrus font shows up. That's when you know that you're in for trouble. Right?
You know,
out of
that
the
was
gates.
the font from the original movie, so I'll give them a little credit from not taking
that's
it
fine.
from Avatar.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It could be worse. I mean, if they were really phoning it in, it'd just be Comic Sans.
Yeah.
The Wicker Man.
That's what came out with the computer. What
But even before the title sequence happens, our first sort of our first dramatic set piece of Nicolas Cage as this like Chips style motorcycle cop.
Yes, wonderful.
Looking for self-help books in a diner.
Everything's okay.
What was the point of the diner? By the way, that diner scene, you know the guy with the mustache?
Yeah.
Aaron Eckhart.
That's Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah.
Who is a buddy
in
of
the
Neil
direct.
LaBute. Yeah.
What does he do? Like,
It's a cameo. It's like
such a great cameo that I didn't know until today when I watched it. I was like, wait a minute. Who?
I know.
And
I saw that and I was
yeah.
like, he's not in this movie, is he?
Yeah,
But
he
then
sure
multiple
is.
people show up in this
Really
movie.
great.
Like,
No,
okay.
we'll get to some of the
Yes,
others
we will.
too, for sure. If I can, I just want to start off with one thought that was resonating with me for a while with this before we really get into it, which is that even as corny as the very beginning dramatic set pieces, which we'll talk about, and then the next handful of scenes had some overacting, and for a moment, I thought to myself, oh no, am I going to have to argue to these guys about why overall this movie is so terrible? But then, as Nicolas Cage, once he's gotten to the island, is unpacking his bags and takes out his 2-case
His bee
EpiPen that says like bee venom EpiPen. What is
It was B Epi.
Yeah. And it's bright yellow. Like honey.
You like
Don't
honey, yeah.
worry. Be epi.
I always travel with my bee epi
when I saw
just
those,
in case there's an island full of bees.
And it also looks like a trank dart from like a bad movie. Like, oh, I'm gonna get the dinosaur with this.
Yeah. I'm gonna paralyze a shark with it. Once I saw that, I went, oh, thank God, good. Okay, nope, this movie is as
Really
horrible as I remember. Yes, but that was the moment where I was like, oh, okay, yes, wash over me.
Okay.
I had a similar questioning when we were doing Home Alone 3. I'm like, wait, is this bad of a movie? Wait, yeah, it is.
Oh no, wait, we're right. Okay, so let's talk about this opening shot where the station wagon, and I want to talk about this sequence just slightly in depth because we're going to revisit this at the end of the movie review again. Okay. So he's a motorcycle cop. There's a station wagon that's driving behind him. And he's a cop. He's a motorcycle cop, and obviously a pretty serious guy, right? Mm-hmm. And the girl in the back seat of the station wagon throws a doll out, so he stops.
No, he doesn't stop.
There's a nod to Raising Arizona.
I was just gonna say, did you guys catch the Raising Arizona? He cruises on the motorcycle and bends down and picks up the baby, and I was like, oh,
that's the first thing I thought.
Beautiful,
beautiful little. I haven't seen this movie. You haven't seen this. Oh, you said I
saw it when it first came out.
Of course, that's perfect.
Oh,
beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. So
it's a really great part.
A nod to a movie we probably should have watched instead.
Yeah.
And then he circles back to give it to the little girl who already is way too old to have a dolly, I guess, but whatever. And then has this like weird interaction with the mom or whatever. And then the girl throws the doll again and he goes to get it. And this is the nod that I thought of was that then a 18-wheeler does a full George C. No, I was going to say George C. Scott Changeling and just goes into the front of the station wagon. And then he can't get the girl out of the back.
If you watch too, it's very obvious that there's like some jump cut there where they put it in the screen.
Totally.
Completely.
And then so he can't get the girl out, and then he breaks open the back of the and
with his helmet,
and the car explodes. I guess
the way it explodes and the way he rolls back is so great. And then
and the fact he survives. He
survives. But then the soundtrack to this movie. I have many notes about the score because it's a perfectly fine score. It just doesn't fit the movie because it's like I almost expected like the saxophone from Lethal Weapon to come in.
Totally.
Yes. That's all right though, because I still love you. High five.
Well, if I can paraphrase Family Guy and say the soundtrack insists upon itself.
Oh yeah,
it insists upon it.
It keeps reminding you.
It's like,
I'm here.
This is really dramatic.
They paid me a lot of money for this.
Now remind me, I haven't watched...
Which is Angelo Badalamenti. I don't know if you realize that's who did the soundtrack.
Yeah, the score actually is done by a legit... It's a legit score. It's just
the Twin Peaks guy.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't realize that. Oh, okay.
So poorly chosen.
Now remind me, I haven't watched the 1973 version since we reviewed it originally on our old podcast. And... I feel like it jumps right into him going into the island where this one he's like hanging out.
Yes, he gets the letter and he goes. Like
I would argue that the exposition of the remake is better.
Right,
because in the original you're like, even when he gets to the island, why does he give a shit
like, why is he
about any of the stuff that unfolds?
Not like his reasoning here is any better.
Yeah,
he just goes through this traumatic event and he's like, I'm gonna go. I need some time off. I'm gonna go.
But ultimately,
see about this missing child on this island.
That's true. It does seem ridiculous, but at least there's an anchor, right? There's an anchor that at least centers you around why he would care.
I think that so to make the comparison to the original Wicker Man, which for those of you who have not seen the original, 1973, Christopher Lee, the guy who played the Equalizer, Edward Woodcock?
Yes, Edward Woodward.
Edward Woodward.
You go to Equalizer over Lord of the Rings?
No, not for Christopher Lee.
Okay.
Edward Woodward. No, sorry. No, the Equalizer is no. So anyway, you know, I think one of the things that made that movie work, and it's one of these, you know, it was a Hammer film, but it was also one of the real kind of early apexes of horror art film, sort of art house horror.
Very art house.
And you know, there's like musical numbers in it, and like all this
so
like.
many.
All these weird like cult themes in it, and like the Hand of Glory, and
there's a bird on a cat.
Yep.
There's a circuit, and you're just like, what in the fuck am I?
why are they
watching?
all singing?
What?
But then the aspect of it that made it work is
There's
within
more
the
culty shit in that one.
Yeah.
well,
there
and
is.
it being this like 1970s thing, and that Edward Woodward's character is this like puritanical guy who's like super religious, and so his outrage works. Now here, and I do have
80% of the same dialogue as the last.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. But I will say that here the challenge is that, and I might as well just do this now. But I do have a minor diatribe about Neil LaBute, the director, who was he was from Utah. He went to BYU.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, he went to
that's
BYU.
neat.
He was a playwright.
That's awesome.
And he made a huge splash in the late 90s with his first film, In the Company of Men, which we reviewed on our old show.
Yeah.
And it was this really, you know, it was this scathing look, almost this indictment of sort of like toxic male culture within the workplace. And it had this like really great kind of David Mamet type dialogue to it.
Eckhart.
And it felt really like, it was Aaron Eckhart's first film, and it just really felt like, boy, this is like so intense in this way, right? And then the next couple of movies that Neil LaBute made, you go, oh no, he's just a misogynist. He wasn't being clever with his dialogue. He actually is a misogynist because after
Funny
that,
enough,
after
he gave us the Me Too movie we never asked for.
Exactly. So after The Company of the Men, he does Your Friends and Neighbors, which at first feels like it's a misanthropic kind of slice of life, like maybe a Todd Solondz kind of a film, until you notice that there's tons of misogynistic themes, and then you fucking notice that all the characters in the movie are named Mary, Barry, Terry, Cherry, Carrie, and Jerry. And you're like, oh wait, maybe he's just an asshole, right?
Yeah.
And so... Then he does another one called The Shape of Things, where Rachel Weisz gets engaged to Paul Rudd only to reveal later that he is just her senior thesis project and manipulation. And at that point, I'm like, Neil, who hurt you, dude?
Yeah,
like,
he's-
who left you standing at the altar? Because there's something deeply shattered about this man. Finally, we get to The Wicker Man, which has got to be the most terrifying idea humanly possible for Neil LaBute, that he goes to an island where all these dizzy broads won't listen to the only man in a position of power.
True.
The only time they listen is when he pulls a gun on them.
Yeah, like how scary does that have to be to a crazy misogynist, though, to be like, it's a whole island of them, and none of them will listen to anything I have to
That's not
say.
even what the first one is even about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he basically took the idea of like, what's scarier than paganism to a super Christian guy, and it would be like a matriarchal society to a guy that just wants all these dumb broads to listen to him, right? And so, yeah.
There's that one Wonder Woman comic that just really hurt him inside
Yeah.
when he was younger.
Okay. So that's my diatribe about Neil LaBute, which is just like, I don't know. The guy is so.
So, you know, in the research of this, you know, the original filmmaker, what is his name? Robin Hardy asked for his name to be taken off the film credits because he didn't want to be associated with this because he was very against it.
You missed the point. Missed the point, Neil.
Yeah, I think you did. And then Nick Cage defends this movie in the kind of you know, unintentional comedy of it, saying it was an absurdist black comedy.
Black comedy, and you should watch it that way.
Yes. you
I
should do
mean,
it that way.
here's the thing.
That's a cop out if I've ever heard one.
I mean,
If that was true, Neil LaBute would be the most brilliant director on the planet, because I don't know how you do that here. I don't know how you be like, there are dramatic scenes where characters are talking to each other, and there's points where I go, are they accidentally reading each other's dialogue?
there was a point when I thought the movie was cut out of sequence, where maybe they edited it and they had changed the sequence of
Why is he so mad all of a
so
sudden?
the actors are all of a sudden are confused about what situation they're in, especially Nick Cage. He's like at one point aloof and goofy, and then He turns around and he's like enraged, like psycho for no reason, and it made me think.
He's on pills. He's on pills.
I made a note.
Did you not see the pills he was taking at the
Oh
beginning
yeah.
of the movie?
Did you see his big hand movements in those parts when he takes the pills? His hand comes out like really big, really like.
How about every time
grade
he has
school,
to answer?
acting school?
How about every time he has to answer a phone? He's like, oh god. Like, is that did you grow up on an Amish farm? Is that the first time you've ever heard a phone ring?
It's such an
It's a traumatic situation he's been through. Okay,
really
it's really edgy.
He's beat up about it.
No one found the bodies. Like, who are these people?
How does that happen? And that's just thrown away. Where it's like this woman cop that's apparently his friend shows up, also a very strong female. So that's got to, I mean, again, like what was the casting call like when Neil was like, here's a toy I had as a child. Will you stomp on this for a minute? And then just waits to see if he gets an erection. No, you're not quite right.
He is a humanoid. Let's be honest.
Why is that conversation? It felt like they made it intentionally really uncomfortable, but I couldn't ever understand why.
They all feel like that when he's talking to his buddy, and he's like,
worse.
"Well, I didn't ever knew that you were married." And he's like, "The plot thickens," and I'm like, "What?
Didn't know you had a plot."
Yeah.
That should have been the tagline of the fucking movie, by the way. That should have been on every poster across America.
Wonderful.
in papyrus."
Okay, so you guys are talking about papyrus. I don't know. You're talking about the credit scene?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just the font they use.
Because I have my first note, other than Aaron Eckhart, is the letter from Willow.
Yes.
Looks like a letter from Dumbledore.
Oh, it does.
If you look at the
Beautifully
font,
written.
it's the most beautifully written letter.
Yeah.
The penmanship is like
I agree.
remarkable.
I totally noticed
it's
it.
remarkable, and I'm like, who the fuck writes like that? This was made in 2006.
Okay, we should probably, Paulter, do you want to take us through just the general
I
plot
might have
line here?
skipped a little, yeah.
No. This is fine. This is how these
It's
work.
essentially, like I said, he went through this traumatic experience. He gets this letter from Willow saying, "Oh, my daughter's been kidnapped or something."
She's the poor man's Fiona Apple.
Oh, yes, that's good. That is good. That's very good. Her name is Kate Bahan, and
This is the biggest movie she's ever done.
Yeah, it must be. And so we don't know who she is, but he feels like he has to go and do this, even though his boss is like, "Why would you do this?
You're on
He goes
vacation or
anyways,
whatever." Yeah.
And he has the most awkward encounter with a pilot who just happens to be going to this island.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm not going there. It's too private. He's like, well, what about $200? Well, fine, let's go. Right away. And so he
Mr. Grant and his twin brother Ulysses.
Yeah.
That's exactly how he phrased it, I believe.
It is.
What?
Which that's how I'm
It's
always going to offer anyone money from now on.
They should have an awkward moment of silence though, where he's like doing the math and he's like, wait, which president?
Which is ours?
Mr.
I
don't know.
What's his name? I'm gonna Google it.
But Edward Malice, which is Cage's character, goes to this island, gets dropped off in the muckiest entrance I've ever seen ever, and walks through like no luggage. By the way, I don't know if you noticed that he's wearing the same suit the whole time.
Yeah.
No luggage.
He does have he has a bag of some
he has a bear
sort.
suit, and that's about it.
Well, he has a bag that is bee venom
that
stuff
had his
is
bee
in.
venom
You're
and
right.
his self-help tapes.
You're right.
So when does he have that bag?
Right.
Did we find a continuity error? Because I don't know that he
No, he has the
Neil.
bag when he walks up the
Neil.
hill. When he gets out of the plane prematurely and walks up the weird mountainside to come into town, so like they weren't gonna know the pilot
where he
dropped
really
him off.
wants to know what's inside of the wet bag that the men are carrying.
Which, by the way, he never finds out.
What is in
Well,
the
you got a
bag?
shark in there
What's
or
in there?
something?
And then he
Why
goes
would
to
you
look.
assume a shark?
And then there's
it's
a
a shark.
jump scare, and then they don't show you what's in the bag.
Yeah.
I was so mad about that. I wanted to turn the movie off right then.
But essentially, he is trying to investigate this missing girl in this. What did IMDb call it? Neo-pagan community.
Yes, neo-pagan.
neo-pagan.
Summer's Isle.
Summer's Isle.
Which then they did keep the name. They did keep the name the same. I was just gonna say I did put together a little bit of a Wicker Man drinking game.
Oh God.
They don't have a lot, but I was just thinking, anytime that Nicolas Cage wakes up startled from a nightmare, you have to drink, which happens
A lot.
so many times in this movie. I think it happens 4 times.
It's the pills.
Yes, it's the pills. Anytime that he interrupts a woman that's trying to answer a question he just asked. So he asks a woman a question, and she starts to answer, and he's like, well, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. And it's like, she's answering the thing you just asked.
Get there, man.
Phallic
Just let
symbol.
it.
Phallic symbol.
Phallic symbol. And then finally, drink anytime that there is a dream sequence or a flashback that looks like a 90s music
Oh, you
video.
get shit
it's
faced
like-
from that, right?
Yeah.
TV in black and white.
It's just like these sepia-toned like layers upon layers of
Runaway train, never going back.
it's
That's what
totally
it
Soul
reminds me of.
Asylum.
Perfect.
Oh my god. I don't think I think before I saw this movie, I didn't realize like how hilarious misplaced urgency can seem. Like when it's like
That's a great observation.
it's
That's a good way
trying
put
to
it.
make you feel a thing, but
you
you
swing
just
it?
What is
can't.
that? Some kind of city talk?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Ladies' night.
Why'd it burn? Why'd it burn?
Why did it
It's
burn?
like, but you're like, I'm not that invested.
Yeah,
But,
why
like,
is that? Why is that the thing we're all worried
scene
about?
Where he goes, I think it's a hotel or wherever he's staying, and he has that drink and he slams it down and he becomes like the man in the room. He's like, all right, just so y'all know, I'm here to investigate a murder of a child.
So that's when he goes full Nick Cage. When you're
Yes.
like, because the whole beginning of the movie, you're like, okay, he's doing all right, other than the Ahoy thing.
Ahoy.
Yeah, it's
Other
pretty
than
weird.
Ahoy,
Yeah,
he so far is on an okay track.
yeah.
And then as soon as he drinks the mead,
Yes.
it's like crazy flips on. And then it was like the next day. Like they filmed those 2 scenes are filmed on separate days, and old Nick just decided, you know what, I think my character's a little more worked up about this than you guys realized.
Neil, I have some notes.
I've thought about this a lot in my trailer. That's the
and then it's
really
like the
mad
next
here.
day when he goes into the classroom, and the very first thing he does is he just goes up and erases whatever the lesson is
oh my god.
to write his name. Like I don't.
And then to just leave. He writes his name, asks a couple of totally dumb and inane questions.
yes.
Right? Like, did you know this girl? He finds the bird, and then he just leaves.
Yeah.
To never
little
come
liars.
Before he calls them all liars.
Yeah, he calls them all liars.
And then she's the biggest liar of them all. And then apparently
Yeah,
that
what is
woman
the-
has a twin. We never explore this, but just in the next minute,
she's there.
she's there. It's almost as if like Neil LaBute has these things that scare only him that
Twins.
have no explanation.
Blind people.
Twins, blind people,
Women.
people with sores, women in general, bees, obviously.
Clearly bees.
But it's like there isn't ever even like he goes, well, this is something that really. It's like, you know, at least David Lynch goes.
Man.
At least David Lynch has things that scare him, and then he's like, how could I tie this into a larger zeitgeist?
Yeah.
Instead, here it's just like, and then you open a door and there's a blind woman.
Yeah.
And then you shut the door.
The 2 blind ladies that pop up twice in the movie, and it feels like they're meant to be spooky,
Yeah.
you know, bad omen type things, but it doesn't play at all. You're just like, well, there's 2 blind ladies that he's talking to.
No, if anything, the fact that he's trying to make them creepy and they're not gives you more of a shiver that a rapping granny does, where you're like, oh, God.
Rapping cranny.
Do you know what I mean? Where you see it and you're like, oh, that's supposed to be scary.
I do have to say though, like if I would have not seen this movie or had any reference to the other one and looked at the cast, I'd be like, yeah, that looks. I like all these.
Ellen
actors.
Burstyn.
Ellen Burstyn.
Ellen Bernstein's
My
amazing.
God, she's
Nick Cage
incredible.
can be awesome.
Yes, he
It's her
can.
first horror movie
Since The
since
Exorcist.
The Exorcist.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Come out of 30-year retirement
She
for the
looks
Wicker Man.
fucking gorgeous here.
did.
She
Like,
does. Well,
done
and even
great.
and I'll give this movie credit here. The set dressing looks like if it had been directed by a more competent director or even a more competent cinematographer, it would probably look really great. The ruins of the church look good.
The ruins look beautiful. Like as far as props go,
Yeah.
like you looked at the ruins, you're like those are really good. But I
Yeah.
even made a note, and I don't know where it is, but the filmmaking is so poor. There's some real lighting problems.
Yes.
Right at the beginning where he's moving when he goes, it's his first night in the lodge, and he sees the little girl, so he goes to find her.
Chaser.
Yeah.
Right? He's got to go find her. And he's in a t-shirt, and then he comes out of the lodge, and he's magically dressed in a sweater and
Yes,
a cardigan, and
yes.
he goes after her. But then he gets up into that attic thing, and the lighting gets so bad.
Yep.
Like, so bad.
Well, flat. Everything's flat.
Everything's flat.
Well,
one light.
Yeah, and
source.
LaBute has no idea how to get any kind of like depth of field or even how to track an interesting shot. Later, there's this sequence that should be terrifying where Nick Cage goes down into the catacomb of the ruin, and the door gets shut on him. And there's nothing about it that's suspenseful. And if anything, the shot when he opens the trapdoor, it's like Neil just like put a camera on a tripod and was like, "Good, done, go." Okay. And then they filmed that shot, and then they filmed whoever was shutting it, and then they filmed later while he's trying to get out. Each time the lighting's exactly the same, the camera's in the exact same spot. Yep. And then if you didn't notice, once fake Fiona Apple comes and saves him, he gets out of it and he's dry.
But that's not even the plot point that made me so mad. What made me so mad about that was, at the end, it's all a plot to get him to the island and put him in the Wicker Man,
so
right?
Why would they lock him
in a thing?
And chance killing him,
leaving him over light. There's no way. There's no way her character
listen
is
here,
that dumb.
Listen here, sister. We're gonna get to way more of that in a minute because there's so much of that.
There is.
There's so much of that.
I think something to note here is that he's not a detective.
At all.
If you look at the badge that he flashes through the whole island, it says Freeway Patrol on it. It does. I saw that and I'm like, so what are you flashing? Might as well be a fucking...
Which actually is the best continuity for the movie, because once he decides to take real action, he just starts kicking people's doors in.
If you're a real detective, you wouldn't go swimming in the catacombs.
Yeah,
What are you doing?
A stupid man tries to find his missing daughter.
The catacomb
of course, we find out it's his daughter. What a surprise.
Yeah.
Well, and even that scene is so inept. When the movie isn't like over the top stupid, it moves between being confusing and boring.
It's true.
It's like
very true.
These dialogue scenes, it's supposed to be a high drama, and I'm like, what's going on? And then when she's like, and you're... and then nobody says anything, and then he goes,
"Your child,
Willow,
our child,"
and she's like, "Our child," and he goes, "That can't." No. You mean? And she's like, "Yes," and I'm like, "What's happening?"
It's like the page was just covered in ellipses, and he's like, "Use your artistic merit to choose when those ellipses really hang."
Behind the camera, going,
"Stretch, we've got $40 million. We've got $40 million."
For a detective,
so much money.
For a detective, he's very dismissive of the details. I don't know if you.
Again, he just yells over anyone that's trying to clue him into anything. Now, apparently, all the other men on this island are not just useless. I mean, they literally take this bee thing really seriously, where they are the drones. They are the workers.
I mean, that's the one allegory that you
the
can
queen
pick
bee,
up.
right?
Yeah. And it actually kind of
it plays
works.
well.
Yeah,
I get it. I like that.
And again, like the costuming here looks great. The weird beekeeper things are actually
Jawas?
Quite creepy.
No, the Jawas.
Yeah, they're Jawas. They're Jawas.
There are Jawas? Question mark. I
mean, it's a little unsettling. You're like, that's a weird looking thing.
It's a wild beekeeper costume. I will
really
give it
is.
that.
Yeah.
It's what's that? I'm not good with TV shows. What's the TV show where they're wearing the red hoods?
Oh,
Handmaid's
Tale.
That,
Yeah.
I kind of got that vibe, but then a Jawa.
Yeah, a Jawa.
And I kept expecting like me, and then they'd run away, but they just were.
And then Cage just yells, "My droids!"
Murder. So I watched this movie. I watched I'd seen all of the famous scenes that were compilated together on YouTube years ago.
Yes, of him punching women.
Yeah,
there's so many scenes of him punching women
and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm watching the movie, and it's whatever one that I could find, and it ends, and I'm like, the bee part never happened.
No bee helmet.
Yeah,
and it's because it's a theatrical release.
Yep. Yes,
they have an extended edition DVD where that's how it became famous. And how often has something been memed from an uncut scene? Like, I'm trying to think. Like,
and
rare.
What's even worse is that in the theatrical cut, because I thought the exact same thing, because that was the same one I watched. Is that the same one you watched?
I watched Theatrical today.
Okay,
yes.
so not only is the bee helmet scene not in it, but that entire torture sequence is
Cover
then
it up, and it's just voiceover.
it's voiceover while he's inside
It's
of
so
a
weird.
bag.
It's so strange.
It is. I'm like, why? Yeah.
Why would you
Why
do
would
that?
you show
Watch
that? Why wouldn't you show
Yeah.
him? I know his legs end up getting like they basically smash his knees,
hobble
so he
him.
can't
Yeah,
hobble.
yeah.
But and that part got cut out so they can make it PG-13.
Which, why would you, like, again, Neil, kids don't want to, nobody wants to watch this movie, but certainly kids don't
Not
want to watch
kids.
this movie.
My daughter would have been like 4 minutes in. She would have been like, I'm out.
Yeah.
This is stupid.
Your 9-year-old's like, they lured him to the island to sacrifice him inside of something. Didn't they?
Exactly. And she'd be like, all right, I'm gonna go watch
Yeah.
YouTube.
It's not a striking thing to anybody.
And if you
Which
do,
again,
watch
when you
us.
when you watch the original Wicker Man, that scene when they're like the Wicker Man and
Way more epic.
Edward Woodward turns and sees it and goes, "Oh God!" Like it actually scares you because you're like, he at this moment is realizing they are going to kill him.
Oh God! Oh Jesus Christ!
Yep.
And all that tension, all that amazingness is like in this one. Again, the Wicker Man looks amazing in this new version. All the costumes, all the
one's complaining
animal
about the
faces,
art
like
direction here.
no, exactly.
Other than I was a little let down by, maybe not let down, but I was a little.
You have a minor quibble.
confused. Like the barmaid, I can't remember her name. The actress. is-
Lily Sobia Blubbles.
No.
Not Lily.
The older
Oh,
bigger
the
gal.
mannish woman.
Yeah, the mannish, and she's great. She's been in a bunch of.
She's great,
She's
yeah.
a really great actress.
Yeah.
It's after he kicks her ass promptly.
Oh,
he steals her
he
costume.
socks her in the face, no doubt.
But you
Apropos
come to
of
realize
nothing.
that everyone else is just wearing masks.
Yeah.
And then he's running around in a bear costume.
Right.
Naturally.
No one else is in like a full costume.
Right.
They're all just in either masquerade masks or masks.
Which, if he had been a better detective, he probably would have been like, huh.
Yeah.
I wonder if someone's setting me up.
So
something's fishy.
something that stuck out to me. It probably happened.
Instead, he's like, oh, good, the only lady I knocked out has a whole costume.
Dude, she's got a whole bear suit. This will be so easy.
Perfect.
I'll just go to the
It's
ceremony.
It's like a goddamn Naked Gun or something. Like, oh, I'll use this bear costume.
It's totally a Naked Gun bit.
It is. And no one does anything. And in retrospect, they want him to do whatever he's going to do.
Yeah, he was supposed to get in the bear costume.
course.
Everything was supposed to happen
Let me ask
exactly
you-
how it happened. Yes.
I don't understand.
So, he's a detective. He thinks she's dead most of this movie. He calls out her name 40, 50
God.
times.
Like,
Yes.
Rowan!
Like she's just gonna
Rowan!
go around the
Like, just every quarter is like, is that you?
But
Rowan!
also-
Willow's letter just says, we need a man to come up here to this forest
this out.
and yell her
With them
name
boys.
a couple of
The other
times.
thing that was really weird about that is he's running around yelling her name, right? But the sound mix of this movie
Oh, yeah.
is also so terrible
Yep.
that it's like the sound mix is supposed to make you feel a thing,
Yeah.
and it just makes you confused. Like, is that a real noise or is that just a noise in his head?
Or is the thing I'm seeing is so stupid, this must be another dream sequence, right?
Are we, did we enter dream? But it's
Yeah.
not a Soul
Nope.
Asylum video yet.
Yeah.
So this is real. But the sound mix was bad, so bad that occasionally I was picking up headphones
Right?
and putting them on to listen to see if I could figure out what the fuck
you're
the
thinking
noises
way too
were
much about
really
this movie.
supposed to be driving towards.
Another observation. No one looks heroic riding a bike.
Oh, yeah. Let alone
No
in
one-
a suit in the forest.
An
No
old-timey-
one sticks out like that guy.
You know what? The only thing that could have made it better is if it was one of those big wheel penny farthings bikes.
The funniest thing that when you say that the director's afraid of women, I didn't really make that connection, but now thinking about that bike scene,
Yeah.
give me the bike.
Get off the
Get
bike.
off the bike.
Yeah.
Get off the bike, and he's like trying to take it, and she's like, "No,
Yeah.
go fuck yourself."
And she's like,
and she's like barely moving, right?
But her
She's-
aggressiveness is to push the tire closer
Yeah.
to him, and that makes him pull his gun out.
and then he goes from "get off the bike" to "I will kill you."
Lady!
Murder is murder.
I
Here's
thought,
a bike.
man,
I'm leaving.
This guy went to police academy in like recent times.
He went to police academy at the police
at the
academy.
police academy.
Another great situation that he runs into on the bike is where he tries to help the guy with the logs, and then they just all fall down. And
then he
he's like,
leaves.
all right, see ya.
All right, see ya.
Yeah, peace. I gotta go.
What, you don't talk? All right, sorry, I messed up this whole thing that you just spent an hour on.
He wants to help the guy with one.
Yeah.
And then after he saves the guy from them all falling, he's like, "Oh, well, you pick up all those 30.
You're good.
You got
You got this."
Oh, you don't talk, then I'm out of here.
Oh, yeah. Well, this isn't going to be any fun moving these logs.
The one thing I wanted to mention is that the bear suit
Oh my god.
here not only is so silly within its own context of just like, again, just like riding an old-timey bicycle. Like, there's no way that you're going to look like anything other than a complete dunce, like running around in this bear suit with the head on top of it. But it also, like...
It's not like they're Amish. They can't have a car on the island.
I know, right? I just wanted to say, as a quick side note, though, the last time I thought about this movie is when I watched the otherwise great movie Midsummer.
Yeah.
Ari Aster, you never saw The Wicker Man?
Oh, he had to have.
He had to have.
Right. So why the fuck did you use the bear suit again? In what otherwise could have been like one of the best crescendos to your movie, you made me think about this piece of shit. Where I was like, oh, it looks like Nick Cage in the bear suit. And I'm like, fuck, that ruined that for me.
It ruined Midsummer
that's a good
for me.
point.
Yeah.
I got told how great of a movie that was, and then I saw that and was like, oh,
It's Nick Cage in the bear
this
suit.
is dumb.
Yeah. It could have been anything. It could have been a goat. Even if it had just been a goat.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, this is great. Instead, you did the bear thing, even with his face in the same hole.
Yep, in the same
it's
dumb
exactly
spot.
the same.
Yeah.
I didn't put that together, actually.
It ruined it for me. Not ruined it.
I don't
It's a
believe
fine
in
movie,
your
but-
God. I'm not one of you. God,
Okay.
it's just endless.
Let's get to it.
Yeah.
For anyone out there who may have missed it, yes, when they do the big reveal and the women take off their masks, that is his motorcycle cop buddy,
Yeah.
as well as the woman from the station wagon and her little girl
And the little
at the
girl.
Wicker Man Festival too. How? How could this
Cop buddy.
possibly be so? The woman who comes to him and says, and they never found the body, she's there too.
I didn't. Oh, okay.
So all three of them are there. Even if they could pull off the idea that he would stop and pick up her doll, and then they would get, and even if they could get a semi to hit her car, and that the car would still somehow explode right on
I
time.
mean, he
and
was
that,
standing in the lane where you should be hit
And that-
by a truck.
Right, and that even if you could do that, and then all of them would still somehow be able to get away from this without anyone being actually injured. Why? What's the point of that? Psychological torture? Like, what was possibly the point of even doing that to start the whole thing in order to begin with? Like, there's no purpose to do any of that.
Isn't the rule you can get your characters into trouble with a coincidence, but you can't get them out of trouble with a coincidence?
Yes, Deus Ex Machina.
So that thing feels like, yeah, let's just throw them in there
Yeah.
to like tie up
Yeah,
a
ends.
loose end that didn't exist.
Yeah.
None
yeah.
of us were questioning whether or not the girl or the truck accident or any of that shit was real.
No, we never.
Like, had
we
those
never
three
thought-
not shown up, I would have been like, okay, well, that girl died, and they
That's why
never
you
found the
don't-
body.
You don't
Because
need
what-
the bookends to this movie.
What kind of a lunatic would you be watching the movie the first time and be like, I think it's a conspiracy, dude? Anybody be like, shut up, of course it's not, you idiot. And then you're like, oh, it is a
Oh, it is.
conspiracy.
The whole thing is a conspiracy.
And then I gotta go to this, though. If all of that is true, which this movie has said is true, then why was everyone so weird to him on the island the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Why didn't he just, like, show up and immediately, like,
accepting.
3 girls have sex with him, and he's like, well, fuck, I'm never leaving here. And then they just drag him out of his bed in the middle of the night and throw him in the Wicker Man. Like, why does he have to be
Because he
like,
got
what's
a
with
very nice
that bleeding
letter.
bag, right? Like,
Well,
why does all that
she
have to
tries
happen?
There's a brief moment where they try to explain that away. At the very end, when they're all gathered around, he's got a gun. There's the big standoff. He's got his empty gun.
Is it a
apparently
standoff when
he's-
the other people don't have a gun?
Yeah, he's never. That's true. I mean, it's still a standoff of sorts.
And apparently
right?
she's been standing there holding his bullets,
Bullets
the whole time.
just waiting to like. Can you even picture a person in real life being like, I'm gonna wait until right at the last
be
moment
great.
to be like,
Yeah, like Ellen Bernstein was like, "Hey, now Willow, here's what I need you to do.
you need to
is
wait.
after he's gone with your daughter through the woods in the bear suit, and then she'll come out and she's gonna run to you, okay?
And then you.
after she runs to you, then I'm gonna say a bunch of stuff.
And then you go get police certified and pretend you're a cop for this long, and then get him to this island.
Doug said he has a station wagon, and Billy's cousin owns a semi.
got this, guys.
Yeah, we can do this. this whole thing.
So what's the day called? What is it? The May Festival?
The Mayfest, yeah.
Okay, Mayfest is on the 15th, guys.
Okay,
we gotta
so-
wrap this up.
So that means we need her to drop the doll on the 10th, and then in 5 days, the letter came late.
And
The
that's-
letter came 2 days late.
That's also...
Oh, everything's ruined.
I also don't really understand the timeline. The timeline's very fuzzy.
Yeah,
And
has
I
it been like 6 months? Not to mention, like, fake Fiona Apple says, well, that was a long time ago, to Nicolas Cage. And I was like, what were you, 12?
Yeah.
Because she's like 25 years younger than him.
And half his age. Like,
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
should
good
have
point.
figured that part out.
Yeah, none of that makes any sense. Where later, like, she's able to be at a bar and get trolled for sex by James Franco.
God, it just dawned on me what some of those scenes sound like or feel like.
Oh yeah, no
They
doubt.
feel like the fake church scene in Wayne's World. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
when
so
they get the
from
crappy
The
actor
Graduate.
in, he's
Yeah.
like, the church on Denver Street.
Yeah.
He's like, can we get someone better? And then they bring in Jonathan Heston.
Honestly, what would this movie? What
Feels like the whole movie is that bad actor. It's all wistful and like,
What would this movie be if they just kept Aaron Eckhart in it and not brought in, not turned around and had Nick Cage be there looking at everything's okay on the rack?
Nobody would ever remember anything about this.
It would be completely different.
It'd be,
wouldn't,
well, it'd be
'cause he
completely
wouldn't have
forgettable.
acted it that way.
You know who they
Exactly,
wanted?
that's
You know
what
who
I'm
they
saying.
wanted? He wanted Liam Neeson.
I mean, that's actually pretty close. Like, I could see a version
I don't
that would
think.
be
I think it would
just
be.
as bad.
I think it would be just as bad, but there's no way we'd be talking about it right now because it wouldn't be funny.
Can we
It would just be bad.
Can we proposition the internet for a deep fake of Liam Neeson imposed on Nick Cage's body?
I love it.
I know this shit can be done now. And
Why is it burned? How did it get burned? How did it get burned?
So many epic.
Yeah. So James Franco, the whole thing
What
starts
is
over
with that
again.
cameo? It's so random.
Is super random.
Like, why did it have to be James Franco?
Yeah.
And I've seen the other guy too and other stuff. I don't know his name, but I'm like, why? What are you doing? You're
and
just,
apparently it's like going to start the whole cycle over
Why
again.
would
I guess.
James Franco even agree to it. I mean, I get they're luring in other men or whatever. Like I said, LaBute gave us the Me Too movie that we didn't ask for.
And he's also a police cadet.
Yeah.
So you go, this is the longest con possible because how old is the daughter that Nick Cage is looking for? Like
they
9?
have a year every year. They have the Mayfest.
Right, so
they have a year to
they're
get
planning
another guy.
on it being a bad. They're planning on it being a bad crop again in 10 years. They're like, all right, you girls got to go out and troll for seed tonight because we might have a bad crop in 10
Go
years.
bang a couple of cops.
Just in
We gotta reboot this whole
Just the
plan.
cadets, a cop, but not a smart cop.
Not a smart cop. Just one with a dashing smile.
Wow, amazing movie.
So that was I did good. Did you
Oh,
need to
fuck
see
yes.
this?
Oh yeah. So glad I saw it. And in the moment watching it, there's so much ridiculous shit that you're like,
This is
can't wrap your head around.
This is why I've watched it 7
right?
times.
Yeah,
is because to me, I'm like, and I said this to you, and when I said this before we watched it, this was my pitch for you watching it. As I said, imagine if a programmer wrote an algorithm for a computer to try and describe tension and psychological horror, and then the computer was like, dan, 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 and printed out the Wicker Man, and you'd just be like, oh, you're close. You have all the parts, but you don't. You're not.
fit.
You don't have a pulse, so you don't know what any of it means.
You're right. That is the longest con ever.
It's so ridiculous.
10 years.
You know what? The other crazy thing, and I wrote this. This was a note. It's crazy to me that that's not even Nick Cage's worst movie.
No, not by a long
Like,
shot. It's
Not
way-
even in that year. Ghost Rider was like 10 times worse than that
God.
movie.
Oh, wow.
That was the
Yeah,
same
it's
year?
around
Same
that
year, or
2006?
very next year. It
I
was
mean-
Wicker Man, Ghost Rider.
That's the thing is that
roll.
it's not part of what makes it fascinating is it's not a completely incompetent film.
No.
It's not like you're seeing like the boom mic come in.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, there's a handful of like continuity issues, but for the most part, it's just that everyone had the best intentions and did stupid things with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the plot, at the end of the movie, you go, okay, I understood all the things that happened. I felt like I knew where I was in the world, right?
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
know all the things
Yeah,
that
yeah.
unfolded.
Yeah.
But it also seemed so fucking dumb that they did. that I couldn't really bite into it as a meat. And it just was like, you had to stretch the taffy so far to connect dots. It was just like,
The overacting
You know
is
when
on
you
point.
you know
for
when
sure.
you lose tension is when you're watching something and you go, sure. Yeah, I guess
all right,
that's
I guess that happened.
guess that's what happened. Okay, yeah,
okay.
sure. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful choice. Thank you, Jeff, for
Brilliant.
coming. Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
for listening. That is the end of the You Should See This Festival. We'll start a new fest next week. Look forward to that. We're going to concentrate on female directors. So excited to get into that.
Yeah, for sure.
So please subscribe. We're here every week. And please follow along. And we will see you soon. Thanks again, Jeff.
Thanks, you guys. So
God
why
bless.
did you put a tracking device on your guys' phone?
I actually didn't do it. She did it.
and then
me, but
you
we're-
used it
Yeah,
against
well, we
her
both
today.
have it. It just shows up. You pull up Google Maps, and I can now all the time see where she is and where my daughter is. It's actually kind of nice.
Is it the Life 360?
It's just you just turn it on. And you're like, track my people I want to stalk, I guess. And luckily they're my family, so I don't feel weird about it. But it's
Can
handy.
you only? So
They
does a
have
person?
to. They have to share it with you.
Oh,
So she goes in and says, Jeff can see my location all the time. And then I had to go into my phone and be like, Nikki can see my location all the time. And so we can now see each other's location all the time.
Do you think that the person who invented it because they were like, "Okay, babe, I need you to give me access to see where your phone is all the
You got
time."
something to hide?
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
I mean,
Why can't I see all your emails?
yeah. I don't know if that's the case, but for us, it's actually nice. I know
Is that
it
why you
seems
guys did
weird.
it?
No,
There's a
it's-
little bit of friction.
Nikki was just like, give me your phone. And I'm like, oh, here you go. And she turned it on. I was like, what's that? She's like, it's just a location thing. I'm like, all right. I work from home, dude.
Yeah,
Track
that's
me
true.
all you want. Like, you...
Oh, he's in the bathroom.
And even
again.
if you are, even if you are on one of your work trips, it's not like she's going to be like the bar.
Yeah.
like she doesn't have any context
Shocker.
of where anything is
Exactly.
from like Atlanta or some city.
I've
Exactly.
seen multiple things that people have gotten caught cheating because of technology. I read about this man and wife who synced their watches together, and she realized that his heart rate went up really high at 3 in the morning one morning when he was out of town. He was like, "What's this about?"
Oh, my God. I'm
Also-
throwing away this smartwatch tonight.
Also,
Baby, you know I like to use the elliptical at 3.
No,
I couldn't
stretches.
it
was a wet dream.
The other thing, if you want to catch your spouse cheating, if you're curious, like, oh, if they may be cheating from you here, go and see if their phone connects to the Wi-Fi.
Oh.
So, like, go sit in the parking lot of someone's apartment building,
And then just see if
weird.
it connects to their Wi-Fi.
That's interesting.
Oh, that's a really good. That's a good
just
idea.
don't cheat.
Or don't.
Yeah,
don't,
I just am not
Don't be a
worried
piece
about
of
it.
shit. I guess that's.
Here's the thing. I never even look at it, really. I don't need Google Maps when I'm at home, so I never pull up Google Maps. But tonight, like when I'm trying to get a hold of her because I wanted to get here on time, finally I pulled it up. I'm like, where the fuck is she dead? She's not. Do you know what I mean? Like these are the things that go
And when
through
it
your
said
mind.
that she was a mile away, were you like, most accidents happen close to home?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. Well, and then it also showed my youngest or my oldest daughter on the freeway and her at a house, and I'm like, why?
How could that be?
How? What is going on? What? And there's a text where I was just like, what is going on? Like,
I have to go to my friend's